We continue now at the top of Daf 105a Daf Mesechet Sanhedrin. This is Sanhedrin Daf 105a. On the previous Amud, the Gemara said that the Dorshe Reshumos, those who darshan psukim metaphorically, they understand the pasuk in Tehillim to say that even those who are listed, that they don't have a share in Olam Haba, they don't have a share in the world to come, but eventually they will get into Olam Haba, and the Gemara is darshaning each part of the pasuk. And on the previous Amud, the Gemara said the part of the pasuk which says Yehuda Mechokaki, Yehuda my scepter, that refers to Achitofel. As the Gemara now continues, Deka'asi mi Yehuda, because he came from Yehuda. And the Gemara continues the next part of the pasuk, which says, Moav sirachatzi, Moav is my washing pot, Zegechazi, that refers to Gechazi, Shaloka al iske rechitza, because he was struck due to something that had to do with bathing. And this refers to the story in Sefer Melachim when he instructed Naaman to bathe in the Yarden. And the next part of the pasuk, Al Edom ashlich nali, on Edom I will cast my shoe, Zedoeg ha'adomi, it says Edom in the pasuk, that refers to Doeg ha'adomi. And the next part of the pasuk, Alai Peleshes Hisraoi, over me, Peleshes cries out, and the Gemara interprets that, Amru Malachi Asharis Lefnei HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the Malachi Asharis said before HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Ribono Shalola, master of the world, Im Yavo David, if David will come, Shaharagas HaPlishti, he was the one that killed the Plishti, V'horish Es Bonecha Gas, and he bequeathed to your sons Gas, Ma'ata Osalo, what are you going to do with him? And Rashi explains, Im Yavo David Shaharagas HaPlishti, meaning V'yitzak Lefanech, if he's going to complain, Al Shatanosin Chelek L'Doeg V'Achitofel, that you're giving a portion to Doeg and Achitofel, Olam Haba, a portion of Olam Haba, Ma'ata Osa Lohafis Daita, what are you going to do to calm David HaMelech, Shehim HaYuson and Oso, because they hated him? And the Gemara continues and explains, Amar Lehen, he says back to them, Alai La'asoson Reim Zelozeh, it's upon me to make them friends with one another. And the Gemara continues, the pasuk in Yirmiyahu says, Madua Shovav Mazeh Yerushalayim Meshuva Nitzachas, why did this nation turn back? And the Gemara interprets the pasuk, Amar Rav, Rav says, Teshuva Nitzachas, Heshiva Knesset Yisrael the Navi. Knesset Yisrael, Klal Yisrael, they gave back a good answer, a good response to the prophet. Amar Lehen Navi Li Yisrael, because the Navi said to Klal Yisrael, Chizru B'tshuva, you should do teshuva, because Avosechem Shechatu Heichon Heim, your fathers who sinned, where are they? Amru Lehen, and they said back to them, Unuviechem Shalochatu, but what about your prophets that didn't sin? Heichon Heim, where are they? And the Gemara says, Shenemar, as it says in the pasuk, Avosechem Ayehem, where are your fathers? V'haneviyim Halaolam Yichyu, are the prophets, do they live forever? Amar Leheni said back to them, Chazru v'hodu, they actually repented, and they admitted, Shenemar, as it says in the pasuk in Zechariah, Ach devarai v'chukai asher tzivisi, my word and my law that I commanded, as avadai haneviyim, to my servants the Neviim. There are a number of interpretations of the Achronim in terms of exactly what the back and forth is in this Gemara. And the Gemara continues with another view of the discussion back and forth. Shmuel Amar, Shmuel says, Bo Asar b'nei Adam, 10 people came, v'yashvu lefanov, and they sat in front of him. This is talking about sitting in front of the Navi Yechezkel. Amar Lahen, he said to them, Chizru b'tshuva, again he said to them, do teshuva. Amru lo, they said to him, Eved shemachoro rabu, if you have a slave that was sold by his master, or v'isha shagir shabal, or let's say you have a wife that was divorced by her husband, klum yesh lazal zeh klum, does anyone have any claim against the other? There's no relationship anymore. So too, we have no relationship, no obligation to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Amar lo, he said to him, Amar lo HaKadosh Baruch Hu l'Navi. So HaKadosh Baruch Hu said to the Navi, Lech emor lohen, go and say to them, and this is a pasuk from Yeshayahu, Eza sefer krisus imchem asher shalachtia, where is the sefer krisus? Where is the divorce document? O mimi noshay asher macharti eschem lo, who from the creditors did I sell you to? Hein ba'avonosechem nimkartem uvefeshechem shilcha imchem, it was through your sins that you were sent away. And the Gemara continues, V'hainu dam Reish Lakish, and this is the same idea that Reish Lakish said. Ma'idech siv, what does it mean when it's written in the pasuk? It says David Avdi, it says David my servant, and then it also says Nebuchadnezzar Avdi, it says Nebuchadnezzar my servant. It uses the same terminology for Nebuchadnezzar as David HaMelech, and the Gemara explains along the lines we just said above, it was revealed and known before the one who created the world, who spoke and created the world, Sha'asidin Yisrael Lomar, in the future Klal Yisrael would say, Sha'asidin Yisrael Lomar Kach, that the Klal Yisrael would make this claim that they no longer have these obligations to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Lefika chiktam HaKadosh Baruch Hu v'karu avdu, therefore HaKadosh Baruch Hu proceeded and called Nebuchadnezzar his slave, his servant, because the idea is Eved shekana nechasim, when an Eved acquires property, Eved lemi and nechasim lemi, who does the Eved belong to? Who does the property belong to? The idea is even under Nebuchadnezzar, there are still obligations to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And the Gemara continues, the pasuk in Yechezkel says, V'olal ruchachem hayolosia asher atem omrim, niach hagoyim, you say you want to be like, that we should be like the other nations, kemishbechos ha'aratzos, like the other lands, l'shares eitz va'evin, to serve wood and stone. Chayoni nuam Hashem Elokim, by my life, says Hashem, im lo biyod chazoku v'zronatuyo v'chem ashvucha emloch alechem, through my strong hand with my great wrath, I will be the king over you. And the Gemara continues and explains, Amar Rav Nachman says, Kol ki HaKadosh Baruch Hu should get so angry at us in a way that ultimately we will be redeemed. It's worth it to suffer the anger of HaKadosh Baruch Hu if that means redemption. And the Gemara continues, the pasuk says in Yeshayahu, V'yisru l'mishpat, chastise in judgment, Elokav Yorenu, his God will instruct him. And the Gemara interprets this pasuk, Amar Rabba bar Barchana says, Amar lehen Navi Yisrael, the prophet says to Klal Yisrael, Chizru b'tshuva, return and do teshuva. Amrulo, they say to him, Einanu yicholim, we're not able to. Yetzer hara sholet banu, because the evil inclination is ruling over us. Amar lehem, he says to them, Yisru yitzrechem, you should chastise your inclination. Amrulo, they say back to him, Elokav Yorenu, his God should instruct, meaning to say we need God's assistance in order to overcome the Yetzer hara. And the Gemara continues at the two dots. The Mishnah said, Arba had yotos, there are four regular individuals who have no share in the world to come, and they are Bilam, V'doeg, V'achitofel, V'gechazi, Bilam, Doeg, and Achitofel, and Gechazi. And the Gemara says, Bilam, why is he called Bilam? Below he is without a nation. And Rashi explains, below she'ein lo chelek imam, he has no portion with the nation, no portion in the world to come. Davar acher, another explanation, Bilam, why is he called Bilam shebola am? And Rashi explains, shebola am means shebilbel Yisrael ba'atzoso, he confused Klal Yisrael with his counsel, with his advice, sheisiu lebalak, meaning the advice that he gave to Balak, kedabina l'meimer l'kamon, like we're going to say further on, v'hipel mehem chaf dalad alofim, cause it would be the downfall of 24,000 through that. And the Gemara continues, Ben Ba'or, it says that Bilam was Ben Ba'or, and the Gemara interprets this, Sheba al Be'ir, what it means is that he had relations al Be'ir with his donkey. Rashi says, Ba'or, Sheba al Be'ir, Sheba al Asono, Kimo Behema, like an animal, that's Be'ir. He had relations with his donkey. And the Gemara continues, Tana was taught, Hu Ba'or, Hu Kushan Rishasayim, Hu Lavon Hu Arami. The Ba'or, the father of Bilam, that's the same person as Kushan Rishasayim, and that's the same person as Lavan. And the Gemara explains, Ba'or Sheba al Be'ir, he's called Ba'or because again, Ba'al Be'ir, he had relations with the animal. Kushan Rishasayim, he's called Kushan Rishasayim, Da'avad Shtei Rishayos B'Yisrael, because he did two wicked things in Klal Yisrael, and in two different times. Achas B'mei Yaakov, one was during the times of Yaakov, V'achas B'mei Shvot HaShoftim, and one was during the times of the judges of the Shoftim. Umashamo, and what was his name? Lavan Ha'arami Shemo, his name was Lavan Ha'arami. And Rashi explains, Tana was taught, Hu Ba'or, this is Ba'or, meaning Avav Shel Bilam, the father of Bilam, Hu Kushan Rishasayim, the father of Bilam was Kushan Rishasayim, and Hu Lavan Ha'arami, he was also Lavan Ha'arami. And then the Gemara said he did two wicked things. Achas b'mei Yaakov, one of the times of Yaakov, Sherodaf acharav uvikesh lakor akol, Lavan ran after him and tried to uproot everything. V'achas b'mei Shoftim, and one during the times of the Shoftim, la'achar misas Yoshua, that's after the death of Yoshua, d'chsiv, because it's written, Vayichar af Hashem b'Yisrael, Vayitenem b'yad Kushan Rishasayim, it says in Sefer Shoftim, that Hashem became angry at Klal Yisrael and he gave them over in the hands of Kushan Rishasayim. And the Gemara continues, Ksiv, it's written in the pasuk Ben Ba'or that Bilam was the son of Ba'or, but it's also written Beno Ba'or, his son Ba'or, which sounds like Ba'or was the son of Bilam. And the Gemara explains, Amar Rabbi Yochanan says, Aviv Benohu lo Benevias, he was his father, but in terms of prophecy, he was like his son, he had a lower level of prophecy. And the Gemara continues, Bilam hu deloasi leal medasi, it sounds like from our Mishnah that Bilam, he doesn't have a share in the world to come. Ha'acharini yasu, but it sounds like other non-Jews, they would have a chelek in Olam Haba. And the Gemara says, if that's the case, Masnis and money, if that's the case, who is the author of our Mishnah? And the Gemara says, Rabbi Yoshua, he, the author of our Mishnah, is Rabbi Yoshua. The Tanya, as we learned in a Brayser, Rabbi Eliezer Omer, Rabbi Eliezer says, the pasuk says, Yashuvu Rishaim L'Sha'ola, there's a pasuk in Tehillim, the wicked, they're going to go to the netherworld, Kol Goyim Shcheichei Elokim, it's all of the nations who forget God. Yashuvu Rishaim L'Sha'ola, the first part of the pasuk, what does that mean? Elu Poshe Yisrael, that's the sinners of Klal Yisrael. And Kol Goyim Shcheichei Elokim, when it says at the end of the pasuk, all nations that forget God, Elu Poshe Ovdei Kochavim, these are the sinners among the non-Jews. Divrei Rabbi Eliezer, these are the words of Rabbi Eliezer, and the Gemara's understanding, Rabbi Eliezer is saying, essentially all non-Jews belong in this category. Amar lo Rabbi Yoshua says to him, he responds to Rabbi Eliezer, V'chi nemar b'chol goyim, is the phrase over over here, b'chol goyim. That's not what it says. V'halolo nemar ela kol goyim shcheichei elokim. It says all nations that forget God. Rather, Yashuvu Rishaim L'Sha'ola, when it says Yashuvu Rishaim L'Sha'ola, Man and Ninu, who is that referring to? Kol Goyim Shcheichei Elokim. That's referring to all those who forget God. It doesn't refer to all non-Jews, only those who belong in the category of Shcheichei Elokim. And the Gemara continues, V'afo, so Rosh, and even that wicked person, Bilam, Nosan Siman Biatzmo, he gave a sign with regards to himself in terms of whether he would have Olam Haba, because Amar, he said, Tamos Nafshi Mos Yesharim, I should die the Mos Yesharim, the death of the Yesharim, of the just ones. And the Gemara explains, Im Tamos Nafshi Mos Yesharim, what he was saying was as follows, if I die the Mos Yesharim, if I die in a natural fashion, Te'yach Harisi Kamo, so then my end will be like him, meaning then my end, I'll have a share in Olam Haba. But if not, if I don't die in a natural fashion, then hineni holech liami, that's a sign that I'm going with my nation, meaning I will not have a share in the world to come. And the Gemara continues, the Pasuk says, by Bilam, Vayelchu ziknei Moav v'ziknei Midyan, it says, the elders of Moav and the elders of Midyan went. Tana was taught, Midyan and Moav, lo hayo lehem shalom me'olam. Midyan and Moav, they never were at peace with one another, but only against Klal Yisrael did they make peace. And the Gemara says, Mashal, it's a mashal, shnei klavim shayu be'eder, two dogs that are among the flock, v'hayu tzuvin zelozeh, and they're hostile to one another. Baz eval ha'echad, and the wolf comes against one of them. Amar ha'echad, so the one says, Imeini ozro, if I don't help him, hayom horego, so today he'll kill him. Ulamachar ba'alai, and then tomorrow he's going to come at me. And so therefore, halchu shneim v'hargo hazev, they both went and they killed the wolf. And the Gemara continues, Amar Papa says, Hainu Damri Inshi, that's what people say, Karkushta v'shunra, a weasel and a cat, Avdu hilula, they make a feast, Mitarba from the fat, the Vishgada, from the fat of those without luck. The idea is, again, when there's a third party involved, then suddenly they make peace. And the Gemara continues, Vayeshu Sari Moav in Bilam. It says that the officers of Moav, they went with Bilam. The Gemara says, Vesari Midyan lahechan azal. Where did the Sari Midyan, where did they go? And the Gemara explains, Kevan Damar Lahu, when he said to them, Linu po halayla, stay here at night, Vashivosi eschem davar, stay here overnight, and then I'll give you an answer. I'm going to consult with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Amru, at that point they said, Klum yeshav shesone esbeno, is there a father that hates his son? Of course, if he consults HaKadosh Baruch Hu is not going to have anything bad happen to Klal Yisrael. And the Gemara continues, Amar Rav Nachman says, chutzpah, when it comes to somebody who has chutzpah, afilu klape shmaya mahani, it even works against heaven, it even works against HaKadosh Baruch Hu, because because originally it's written, lo seilech imam, HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, you shouldn't go with them, but then he has the chutzpah to continue to ask, so lavasov ksiv, so at the end it's written, kum lech itam, go, you get up and you should go with them. And therefore they're saying again that chutzpah is effective. And the Gemara continues along these lines. Amar Rav Shesha says, chutzpah malchusa below tagohi. Chutzpah really is like kingship, it's like leadership, but without the crown, but still it gets a person a certain amount of leadership. Techsiv, as it's written, V'yonochi hayom rachum ashuach melech, I'm a young anointed king. V'anoshim ha'ela b'nei Tzuruya, but these people, these sons of Tzuruya, kashmi many, they're more difficult than me. That's exactly the idea. He was saying that even though the b'nei Tzuruya weren't really kings, but their chutzpah, it gives them a certain amount of power. And the Gemara continues, Amar Rabbi Yochanan says, Bilam chigar baraglo achas haya. Bilam, he was lame in one foot, one of his legs was crippled, shenemar, as it says in the Pasuk, Va'elach shefi, we learn from the word shefi, and we can learn, if we're understanding the word shefi in that fashion, so Shimshon b'shtei raglav, that would mean Shimshon, he had that in both of his legs, shenemar, as it says, shvifon alei orach, hanoshech ikvei sus, shvifon is like the plural, therefore it happened in both of his legs were injured, and Bilam suma be'achas mein of Yasulam, he was blind in one eye. Shenemar shasum ha'ayin, it says that the one eye that he was using, meaning to say he had one eye that he was able to use and one that he was not able to use. And the Gemara continues, Kosem ba'amaso haya, he was Kosem, he was able to divine, and he used his aver for that sorcery. How do we know that? Because Ksiv Hacha, it's written over here, Nofel gluye nayim, it uses the language of Nofel. Ksiv Hasam, and it's written over there by Megillas Esther, it says, V'hinei Haman Nofel al Hamita, it says, Haman the same language, and that was talking about being by the bed. It's talking about essentially an act of relations, and so therefore we understand here as well he was kosein ba'amos, so he uses aver for his sorcery. And the Gemara continues, Itmar, it was stated, Mar Zutra Amar Kosim Ba'Mosahaya. Again, Mar Zutra says that he divined, he did the sorcery with his aver. Marbre Dravina Amar Marbre Davina says, Shabal Asono, they had relations with his donkey. And the Gemara says, Man Damar Kosim Ba'Mosahaya Kedamar, and the one who says that he did the sorcery with his aver, that's like we just said above. Uman Damar Bal Asono, and the one who says that he had relations with his donkey, bestiality. Ksiv Hacha, that's learned from the following, because it's written over here, Kara Shachav. Again, it's written this language of Kara Shachav when it comes to Bilam, and Uchsiv Hasam, and it's written over there in Sefer Shoftim Bein Ragla. It's going to use a similar language, and we will continue with this discussion in the next video on Daf Kufhei Amid Beis.